Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Grow Your Recruitment Business in 2021 LinkedIn Live Show. We are sponsored today by District 4. District 4 are recruitment startup experts who support you to launch and grow your recruitment business with no upfront investment. If you'd like to have a look at District 4 and all they do, I will tag them into this post on the replay. I'll introduce my guest in a moment. And you actually being able to see and hear or can see us in comments. So slight internet issue there, apologies for that. If you are watching live, please do let us know in comments that you can see and hear us. Please do come on and say hello, and please also feel free to come and say hello in comments as well. I am working from my office today because I do have workmen in my house, and although the internet is supposed to be amazing, it doesn't seem like that might be the case. So by all means, please do bear with us. We have got a great show for you today. If we drop out, we will be straight back. I will introduce my guest in a moment, but just to give you an idea about what today's show is all about. Today's show is all about celebrating the rise of the independent recruiter. Now, during the pandemic, I've seen so many independent recruitment businesses starting up, and it is really, really lovely to see. And I think it's really fantastic for the industry as a whole. So being independent allows us to focus on providing a personal service to our clients and put them first, put our clients and candidates first at the heart of everything that we do. And I personally started my recruitment business 11 years ago. And whilst it hasn't always been easy, I've never looked back, and it's really nice to see so many other people doing the same thing. So I think that most experienced recruiters get to the point where they kind of think about maybe starting up on their own. They don't want to be micromanaged anymore. They don't necessarily want to work into KPIs, but they don't see themselves in a management position either. They might want the flexibility to work when they want, with who they want and how they want. And your own recruitment business and kind of setting up as an independent can do that for you. So why have there been so many recruitment startups over the last 18 months or so during the pandemic? Well, firstly, I think circumstance. Perhaps people were thinking about doing it for a long time, and suddenly they were made redundant or put on furlough, and the opportunity presented itself. Secondly, I think that a lot of people suddenly were working remotely for the very first time. And actually, you realise that you don't need that big corporate environment and corporate machine to be successful. You can do it from your kitchen table all by yourself and be successful. So I think that was quite eye-opening for a lot of people as well. And thirdly, the market. So I won't call it post-pandemic. I think we'll call it the mid-pandemic kind of post-vaccination market has asked for a more personal and tailored service. And right now, recruiters are dealing with more roles than ever before. I'm speaking to recruiters that are at capacity. They're not being asked if they want to work with clients anymore. They're being asked if they have the capacity to. I've never worked in an environment like that. The opportunity for startups right now to be successful quickly is absolutely huge. So my guest today is Martin Drake, who started his own recruitment business in January 2020, kind of at the start of the pandemic, just before the pandemic. So massive welcome to Martin. What motivated you to start your own business in the first place, Martin?
Yeah, hi everyone. There's a slight, probably kind of backstory just before kind of the initial decision to go and launch the business. So my own career journey is I did a decade in recruitment, went to an internal role in 2010, and then ended up actually working in HR for 6 years. And in 2016, it was the first time I became a job seeker using the services of recruitment agencies. Up until that point, I'd either worked in agencies or been a client. And I just got a consistently really poor level of service from every single recruitment agency. And if you ask kind of the general person on the street what their assumption and thoughts are of recruitment agencies, that was kind of the experience I got, unfortunately. And for me, that wasn't the way that I used to do recruitment. And I just thought, well, something's wrong here. There was a number of issues that happened with every single recruitment agency in terms of communication, feedback, and it just, the service just wasn't good enough from my perspective. So I felt there was a gap in the market really for somebody who wanted to give a better level of service, but also somebody who'd worked in HR wanting to do HR recruitment, and that was kind of where I kind of moved back into and specialised. Joined an agency, set up their they were a finance and accountancy recruitment agency, set up their HR division. The managing director took a bit of a punt on me, and grew it over 3.5 years. And then the decision then to kind of leave that and set up by myself was really, I suppose, a couple of different reasons. One, I'm kind of similar kind of mold as yourself. I had seen when I'd returned back into recruitment, I'd gone in with a concept of really trying to give people the service that I hadn't received. So I was very much focusing on service. I'm a kind of a one-man band in this recruitment world. I think recruitment is a service industry, not a sales industry, and I've said that since my early career. If you can do sales through service, I think you're more effective than just a traditional kind of cold call sales, aggressive maybe sales approach. And the agency I worked with were very traditional. You know, the KPIs were on the board. You had to hit your number of sales calls, your number of candidate registers, your number of visits. You know, the same stuff that exists on every wall in every agency up and down the land. And for me, what I noticed was, I like I say, I embarked on my second career in recruitment, really focusing on service, and I engaged with LinkedIn from a very early point on, and just without any real strategy, just kind of posting, commenting, and that combined with the service that I was given, there became a bit of a tipping point for me where I no longer had to do sales calls, and everyone in the office was kind of starting to look round of how are these jobs just coming into this guy and he's not doing any sales calls. And it was really just I'd planted seeds that I hadn't known I was planting, but I started to get kind of my own sales ambassadors who were the people that I'd given great service to, who went out and flew my flag for me. So setting up by myself really gave me that freedom and autonomy to when you're employed by somebody else, you're paid by them to do the job that they want you to do. So I was still kind of, I was doing successful in the inbound calls, but the numbers weren't on the board, and I was still being, why aren't your numbers on the board? You need to set an example for the rest of the team. So it gave me the freedom and autonomy to do recruitment the way I wanted to do, but also I very much wanted to kind of drive change and innovation in the recruitment industry. And again, when you're trying to kind of break the mold and rip up the rule book, you can do that, but it can be a struggle when you're employed by somebody else. However, when you are the sole decision maker and it's your head that is in the kind of the gallows to sit on, whether you succeed or fail, then you've got the freedom to do that. So that was my kind of reasoning, really. Freedom, I guess, was the end of it. Freedom to do recruitment the way I wanted to, or I felt recruitment should be done.
Fantastic. Very similar to me. When I set up, I was working for Reed in a very corporate model, and everyone, regardless of how long you've been in the business, had the same kind of sales KPIs. And for me, if you had, if you wanted to do anything innovative, it wasn't that it was seen as bad if you're making money, but actually people didn't quite understand it. It was different. Actually, when you're doing sales figures for a whole region, if someone is not seen as making a certain amount of sales calls, in a corporate model, they see that as you not being successful, whether the money's on the board or not, because you're not doing it the way that they're asking you to do it, as you said, because it's not in your job description. So there's not a lot of room for kind of doing your own thing, being creative, even if it works. So for me, that's why I set up on my own as well. I wanted to do it the way that I wanted to do it. I wanted to work with the clients that I chose to work with in the way that I chose to work with them. And by all means, it gave me the flexibility to do so. Has it always been easy? No. But by all means, you're giving yourself the opportunity to do it the way that you want to do it, which can mean that you're more successful. So obviously you started in January 2020, then obviously worldwide pandemic. How did that affect you?
Well, I was under a restrictive covenant, so I couldn't do recruitment into the sector that I had recruited in. I actually diversified, or I'd already had a decision to diversify, to branch over and to do HR and marketing. One, my wife's a marketing manager and I understand it, but two, I felt there was a kind of a gap in the market for that. So I really just started the business doing kind of marketing, but I wasn't known for that. I was known as a HR recruiter, but all of my contacts just didn't know where I'd gone because I was kind of absent. So I was really kind of setting up from the beginning again, and really just as the wheels slowly started to turn, COVID happened, and yeah, do you know what? I am one of the most optimistic, positive people, and I had an absolute wobble. The first day that we were kind of announced as lockdown, I was like, how am I going to manage? I had savings that were going to see me through a period of time. That I worked out they weren't going to last. So I had a tiny panic attack of kind of what I was going to do.
Right.
But I went away, had a kind of quiet word with myself, and say that again, sorry.
I'm not surprised. I think anyone in that situation would have had a blind panic having just started a business.
Yeah, but I went away, walked the dog, had a quiet word with myself, and thought, right, actually, this could be a blessing. I got to spend 9 weeks with my eldest son, who it was like the parental paternity leave that you just don't get. So I had great time with him because the weather was fantastic, and I just thought, do you know what? I'm going to park the business for now. I'll kind of come back with a bang. And actually, the period of COVID and lockdown saw out my restrictive covenant. So I kind of did a second launch in the May once restrictions started to be lifted, and it was kind of I could then go back to my kind of old client base, and really just started to kind of crank up on the LinkedIn and engage with people. And I think at that point, a lot of people kind of pivoted, and it was just about giving help and giving advice, and really that was the kind of the tack that I took, just trying to use my expertise as a recruiter and my connections, and just help in any way that I can do. That's kind of one of my mantras, and the way we operate. Help anybody in any way that we can, whether we're going to make money out of that or not. Look at the bigger picture, and that kind of just started that off of just helping individuals through that time.
Fantastic. And I know that 18 months on, your business is in a completely different place. Do you want to give us an idea of when you did start after that lockdown, kind of how you started and what you've grown to now?
Yeah, so I'd say really from kind of August, September time, things really kind of started to pick up. From October, started to get pretty crazy, um, and I was kind of at a point of really, I kind of needed an extra pair of hands. But as a business owner, and then kind of going into it for the first time, you're very cost conscious. You're very aware of the money in the bank, and I didn't want to bring somebody in and then have their livelihood, and maybe the bubble might burst, and suddenly 3 months later that the bottom falls out of the market. So I persevered. I kind of worked literally every hour I could. I was working evenings, weekends, doing everything that I could do to kind of stay on top of stuff. And then looked at bringing in my first person in May. In hindsight, I should have brought them in the back end of last year, but from a hindsight's a fantastic thing, isn't it? From a financial perspective, I think I did the right thing by being cautious and conservative, and I kind of managed to stay on top of what I did, although I kind of flogged myself a little bit too much. So brought my first employee on, moved to an office at that point. I was desperate to get back to an office, so moved into an office, and really, I think over the last kind of 5 months, I anticipated that we'd probably be in this office now for a year. I'd expand by one further person by the end of the year. We're now at a team of 5. I've got someone in on interview on Monday, so potentially a team of 6. And things are just flying. But that hasn't just come as a part of the uptake in the market. I've really kind of my whole kind of approach to this is trying to rip up the rule books the way a traditional recruitment agency operates. So when we launched, I introduced market leading commercial terms. We offer a 6-month 100% rebate, which is fairly unprecedented. I don't know of anyone else in the UK that does that, but they might do. But I've got the data. In 6 years of doing this, I've had 3 people leave in the first year, and that was unforeseen circumstances, relocation or childcare issues. So I've got the data to back it up, and really that just puts my clients at ease who've never worked with me before. Launched a podcast last summer, and that's going really, really well. We're just about 5,500 downloads on all the episodes for that. And I've innovated a few different products. I'm not going to go into them because I don't want people to steal my ideas, but we've innovated some pretty, I won't say groundbreaking, they're fairly logical, but nobody else is doing them. And the response from the marketplace on those has been absolutely amazing. And on the back of that innovation, we've actually been able to diversify and generate another income, well, a revenue stream into the business as well, which is, again, the appetite for that. It's early days, but as I'm talking to people about that, everyone's all ears, and when they see it, absolutely love it. So through innovation, through buoyancy in the market, through having really high standards, through focusing on service, I think we've really been able to cement our position in the market. But we're definitely at a point beyond where I anticipated we would be by this point.
Fantastic. And I saw a picture on your LinkedIn a few weeks ago of kind of just you and the dog in the office and what it actually looks like now, and it's getting a bit cramped in there. But what I really love about what you've said so far is kind of all the main things that have made you so successful so quickly. The personal branding and kind of sales through service rather than kind of the traditional sales recruitment model. Your guarantee, which I certainly haven't heard of anyone else doing that. Everything else that you're doing, the products you're doing, the podcast, they're all things that you wouldn't have been able to do or had the opportunity to do or the flexibility to do in a bigger corporate business.
100%, 100%.
Which again speaks to why I get so excited about the independent model being so good for the industry as a whole, because it's allowing us to do things for the right reasons and kind of innovate and kind of change the industry, which is why I think there's so many people like you that have done so well in the last 18 months. It's not just the market, it's not just the pandemic, it's about the fact that you are genuinely doing things differently for the right reasons. And I love your story about being on the other side of it, because you got, bad experience as a candidate and clients that allowed you to put something together that serves your clients and your candidates brilliantly, purely for the fact that you've been treated badly and you've kind of been in the shoes of those people. So I think it's one of those things, isn't it? Recruiters get a very bad name and we all find it really, really frustrating, but actually a lot of it is very well deserved. And it's up to us to not only say that we're going to go and change it, but actually do something about it, which, you absolutely are, which is amazing. So what would you say has been the main challenges for you kind of during the last 18 months, other than the pandemic?
Currently, candidates. We operate in a market where I can count on one hand the number of overseas workers that I've placed. So we're not in an industry that is hit because of Brexit or visa issues. It's just people aren't moving in the marketplace. But again, I think when you look at that, where we've had success, I did some analysis, and 80% of the roles that we've filled over the last year have all been through the passive market. They've been through our network or us doing a real search methodology of, I call it, you've got to come up with a compelling proposition. If you just ring somebody up or message them on LinkedIn and say, are you interested in a job I've got? Why should they be interested? You've got to come up with a reason, a story. What is it that's going to attract that person away from the job, the company that they're in right now? It's either going to be a shorter commute, better working conditions, career development, better salary. You've got to identify a minimum of one of those, if not multiple of those aspects, and then come up with a really engaging way to take that to the marketplace, rather than just a really kind of boring kind of just post on LinkedIn. I think we might have just lost Lindsay. Oh, there you are.
I think personal branding. Yeah, I think personal brand, apologies everyone. I think personal branding, by all means, everyone thinks it's a client thing. Absolutely, it brings candidates. It really helps to bring passive candidates in. If you're going to do DM outreach, it allows people to recognize your name, therefore they're more likely to open your message. So I think, it's a lot more than client-led, and I think still a lot of people haven't quite cottoned on to that yet. The people that are doing really, really well with passive candidates, a lot of the time it's because they're really doing the personal branding aspect of it as well. So what would be your main advice, Martin, for someone who's going to start their own business right now?
Be different. Do you get that?
I always say to the people that I coach is to look at what's already out there in the market, look at what other people are doing, look at what people are not doing, and then kind of put that into your business model, because there's so many recruiters on the market, and there's so many doing pretty much exactly the same thing. So what would your kind of main advice be on how to stand out from everyone else?
It's the simplest thing. When I re-entered back into recruitment, I had my story, and I always tell everybody my story so they understand where I'm coming from as a recruiter. I'm very conscious. When you engage with somebody who knows nothing about you as a recruiter, you pretty much start from a negative position, and you need to kind of claw that back, even just to get to a neutral position. But I used to do a really, really simple process, which is I'd just ask candidates and say, have you ever registered with a recruitment agency? What is your experience like? And typically they would then tell you all the negatives that they heard. And all you have to do is do the opposite. Listen to what people get frustrated about recruitment agencies and do the opposite of it. It's as easy as that from a starting point.
Absolutely. Yeah, I did the exact same thing when I started my own business. I kind of looked at what was going on in the market, and quite a few people do it now, I've noticed, but this is 11 years ago. No one was doing it in my market. And I went to market as an ethical recruiter. I had it all in my marketing. I'd go to a networking event and they'd ask me what I did, and I'd say ethical recruitment. And there was a reason for that, was because I wanted to get out in front of kind of all the negativity straight away. The amount of people that told me that was an oxymoron is unbelievable. But it gave me the opportunity to explain why I was different and why I was different to everyone else in the market. And it was memorable. And as I said, quite a lot of people do it now. But for me, if you're going to go to market saying you are ethical, you've then got to absolutely stand by it and deliver it. For me, it's also about not just saying you are something, but actually going out and proving that to your market as well. And having that authenticity.
Yeah, I kind of often say to my clients, I will under promise and over deliver rather than over promise and under deliver. There's a big thing with a lot of recruiters where they promise the earth, and if you do that and then don't deliver, you've knocked your own credibility. Be humble, and that's a great starting point to build from.
Absolutely. So what would your advice be then, to, other than obviously be different, to anyone sat there at home thinking right now, where do I want to be next year? What does my 2022 look like? This is something that I've always wanted to do, but I haven't quite, it hasn't been the right time, or I haven't had loads of money in the bank, or I just don't know whether I could do it without the big corporate machine. What would your main advice be?
I think recruitment as an industry to go into as a startup is great, because there's no real barriers to entry. You can do it relatively cost neutral almost. You basically need a laptop, a LinkedIn license. You don't even need a CRM. I invested in one, but I know people who've just done it with Excel spreadsheets. I don't know how, but they have. But really, just go for it. Have belief. Understand why you're doing it. If you're just doing it to make a lot of money, I'm not sure how successful you'll be. If you're going about it to try and really have standards, believe in what you're doing, want to be an expert in your market, definitely go specialist. Do not do kind of just generalist. I think it's too hard certainly as a one person. Be a specialist, and if nothing else, invest in your own personal brand. It takes time, it really does. We haven't done a single sales call since I launched the business. Everything comes inbound, from recommendation, referral, through content that we put out. I get messages from people all the time saying, I love your content, it's so helpful. Be that the podcast, what we put on LinkedIn, other methods coming on things like this. Really, the role of the recruiter for me is changing. You need to understand marketing principles and understand how marketing works. And when you do that, the role is becoming very hybrid. You don't have to be a marketer. I think I'm quite lucky. I understand that. I'm kind of got a marketing element about me. But you have to understand it's a bit like Field of Dreams. Build it and they will come. You won't get overnight success from putting one post out. It has to be consistent. I've been doing it for 6 years now. And it pays dividends, much like you, Lindsay. You're from the kind of the same mold as this. It's amazing. It's more enjoyable. It's less effort in terms of doing the cold calls, and you're working with clients who want to work with you, and that is an amazing position to be in.
Absolutely. I was saying to someone this morning, content shouldn't be seen as kind of something to do if you've got time to do it. It should be something that people really prioritize in their day, just like they do any other form of recruitment, because just spending that half an hour a day on the platform will pay dividends later on, and it allows people to get to know, like, and trust you on a really deeper level. It allows people to see you're not a typical recruiter, and it generates inbound leads. So what happens is, as Martin knows from doing it himself, is if you do it properly, people come to you, but actually there's no sales process because you've already educated them through your content as to what you do, who you do it for, how you do it. There's no negotiation on fees. It isn't a, can I speak to you and 10 other recruiters? It's I've chosen to work solely with you. Can you do this for me? Can I have your terms of business? Yeah, please, let's go ahead with it. It's nicer business. And I think that's potentially why, you can have the guarantee that you do, because you've already pre-qualified your clients as well. So you're only working with great businesses, and you've not got that desperation as kind of a corporate recruiter has, of kind of taking loads of business on and taking business on that isn't ideal just to say that you've got so many jobs or you've brought so many new clients on. You can be a lot more considered in your approach and who you actually choose to work with as well.
Yeah, I would also add, I've been on the other side. I've been in HR. I know how bombarded you get. Every recruitment consultant I've worked with thinks they're the only person ringing that day. Trust me, you're the 50th person ringing before the brew at 9:30, and the amount of emails. And that's why you get lost in the crowd when you do the same approach to everybody else. When you do it differently, the clients come to you, and it's just, when you see it, the light bulb goes off.
Absolutely. It's like magic, really, isn't it? Because, by all means, if we tell people that we have some magic machine that brings all our inbound leads, I've not made a cold call in 11 years. Absolutely. For people that are making cold calls now, and, they're struggling, and that's what they have to do in the corporate model to hit their targets, they probably think it sounds like voodoo. But actually, something that does frustrate me still about the industry is that more people aren't doing it, more people aren't cottoning onto it. It's not in job specs. It's not in a recruiter's job spec to be building a personal brand and building a LinkedIn audience. And actually, it should be. It should be in every recruiter's job spec. It should be on every rookie's training scheme. Absolutely. Okay, so if you are sat there thinking about exploring setting up your own recruitment business, if you've always wanted to do it and you're wondering if 2022 could be your year, I'm actually running a free challenge alongside District 4, who help people to start their own recruitment businesses, from the 8th of November for 5 days. During those 5 days, we'll explore your why, as Martin said, because you have to have an overarching why that you can always go back to. Your vision for the future, your financials, that you know that you have the money put aside that you need to actually make it happen and give yourself time to build. Your market, as we said, you need to look at what's going on in your market, what's not, so that you can put a unique proposition together. And we also work on your business plan as well. Look at all the things that you need to consider to put your business plan together. And we're going to answer all those questions that you've got with regards to covenants, terms of business, insurances, data protection, all those sorts of business related things that perhaps you've not had to consider in the past. So by the end of the week, you will either be absolutely raring to go and set up your own business in 2022, or you'll have decided it's not for you, and that's okay as well, because you kind of have to go through the exploratory process to get to that point. So I will post the link for the challenge in comments on the replay for this. If you do want to join us, you are absolutely more than welcome to. I know we've had a few internet issues, so apologies. Hopefully you got to see most of what myself and Martin talked about there. We have got a couple of minutes, so if anyone wants to come on and ask any questions, please feel free. Just bob them in the comments box for myself and Martin, and we can answer those for you. If you are watching on the replay and you would still like to ask myself or Martin a question, please do feel free to still bob your comment on there and maybe tag us into that as well. While we're waiting for that, Martin, just to ask you a question, what does your 2022 look like? What's kind of the plan going on from here?
Move to a new office at some point, because we're busting at the seams already now. Really just try and look at how we can continue to innovate, how we can get better. I think I very much believe in 1% marginal gains, consistently reviewing the business. Needs to do some, there's a bit cryptic this, but I need to look around some intellectual property around one of the products that we've developed. So look at kind of that and secure that. And then really, and again, as a business owner, if you want to grow, you need to start looking at scalability. So for me, 2020 will really be my transition from working in the business to working on the business, and then starting to look at making sure all the systems and processes are consistent, and that way we're in a strong position then to be able to recruit, grow, because I think I've done a lot of, as I've gone through this journey myself, I listen to a lot of podcasts, do a lot of business books on audio books when walking the dog. I think you have to invest in that own self-development as a business owner. But very much it becomes prevalent that if you want to be successful and grow your agency, there's nothing wrong with having a small agency, but if you want to grow it, scalability is one of the kind of key foundations to be able to do that.
Absolutely. Well, good luck. I can't wait to see these products come out and find out what it is that you are cryptically talking about. What's your IP?
They're there. They're already out. I'm just not giving.
Sorted. Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to seeing what comes. If you haven't tuned into Martin's podcast, please do. Remind me what it's called, Martin.
It's called Is This Room Free? So it's more it's HR orientated. So it's about bringing HR professionals on as guests, talking to them through their own career journey. But the more important thing is we take insights out of it that then helps other people in the profession with their own career development as well. So again, it's about kind of giving back into the professions that we recruit into.
Fantastic. So check out Martin's podcast if you're interested in that. Also, have a look at his LinkedIn. He's very much doing something right. He's got a lot of personality in there. You are such a funny guy. And obviously it's working for him. So by all means, please do go on and follow Martin and be inspired by his journey as well, because Martin does share things about the office. He does share things about kind of growing the business. And I think that your story is an inspirational one, especially given the date that you started and how well you have done up until now. We've got no questions coming through, but as I said, we have got slight internet issues. So if they do come through when we finish the live, we will go on and answer them later. But all it remains for me to do is say thank you very much to Martin. It's been an absolute pleasure. And if you do have any questions for Martin or myself or about the challenge, just let me know afterwards. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks.